Moments later, he pulled me onto the bed, rushing as he always did. There was no time, no need to undress. I simply lifted my skirt and we got it over with, fast. Every time felt like we were playing characters in a low-budget spy thriller. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what happened next. The door burst open with a thunderous bang, the kind that shakes your soul. My affair partner was hurled backward as if struck by a force of nature. I was still sprawled on the bed, stunned, paralyzed by shock, struggling to understand. And then I saw him. My husband. He towered over the crumpled figure on the floor. The dim room was lit only by the neon glow bleeding in through the window. The air was thick with the scent of sweat, perfume, and secrets. This wasn't passion. It never had been. Just habit. A fleeting distraction from a dull life. He barely spoke anymore, just came in, got what he wanted, and left. Like a cold, mechanical routine. I had tried convincing myself it was exciting, but deep down I knew it was hollow. Then the door. It didn't creak. Didn't ease open timidly. It exploded with brutal certainty. And the sound that followed wasn't a voice. It was impact. The awful, unmistakable crack of bone meeting flesh. A sickening snap tore through the silence. Before I could process what was happening, the weight on top of me was violently ripped away. I gasped. His body flew across the room, hitting the floor with a terrible thud. Pained groan escaped him. My heart stalled. My ears rang. I turned sharply. And there he was. My husband stood in the doorway, his shadow stretching across the room. His fists were still clenched, knuckles raw and trembling. But his face, too calm. His gaze locked onto mine, heavy with something unreadable. For the first time since this tangled affair began, I felt true fear. He didn't scream. He didn't demand answers. He just stood there. I opened my mouth, maybe to beg, maybe to explain, maybe just to lie. But no words came out. Behind him, the door shut with a quiet click. A small sound, yet it echoed like a gavel. Then his voice. Flat. Chilling. Get up. I swallowed hard. My limbs refused to move. On the floor, my affair partner groaned, trying to lift himself. My husband didn't even glance at him. I said, "Get up." His tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. With trembling hands, I reached for my clothes. My breath came in short bursts. Every nerve screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. I knew instantly. This wasn't rage. This wasn't betrayal. This was something darker. A decision had already been made. And that terrified me. The room was suffocating, thick with dread. My pulse pounded in my ears as I struggled to stand, tangled in the sheets. My husband remained frozen in the doorway, expressionless. But his silence crushed me. A whimper came from the floor. My affair partner clutched his face where the punch had landed. He blinked, dazed. What the? Before he could finish, my husband's foot struck his ribs hard. The sound made my stomach churn. A crunch. He gasped, curling inward in agony. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't a man lashing out in anger. This was surgical. My husband was never impulsive. He was deliberate, precise, cold. Every move was calculated. That was far more terrifying than any outburst could ever be. I tried to speak. Please. But when his eyes flicked to mine, the rest of the sentence died in my throat. He turned back to the man writhing on the floor. Get up. No response. Another blow, this time to the stomach. He choked, coughing violently, trying to drag himself away. My husband crouched beside him, grabbed a handful of his hair, and yanked his head up. You enjoy touching what belongs to another man? His voice was too calm. Quiet even. The man whimpered. I. Without warning, my husband slammed his head against the floor. I gasped, hands flying to my mouth, breath catching in my chest. Then he turned to me. Get dressed. I was already scrambling, fingers clumsy as I tugged my skirt back into place and reached for my blouse. My mind spun frantically. Was he going to talk? Leave? Hurt me? And then the truth hit me like a wave of ice. He wasn't telling me to dress because he wanted to talk. He was taking me somewhere. And I had no idea where. Behind me, my affair partner coughed, trying to push himself up. Man, listen. A punch silenced him, crashing into his jaw and snapping his head sideways. He crumpled with a groan. My husband stood calmly, adjusting his sleeves as if he had just brushed lint off his jacket. Then he looked at me, tilting his head slightly. Let's go. Where? My voice cracked under the weight of fear. He smiled. That smile told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't being led somewhere to talk. I was heading toward judgment. He reached for my wrist. His grip wasn't painful, but it was unshakably firm. Move? My heart pounded like a war drum as he led me out of the room, past the broken man on the floor. The bastard didn't even try to get up. Maybe he knew better. As we stepped into the hallway, something even more chilling set in. My husband still wasn't yelling. Still not lashing out. He wasn't out of control. He was in control. Completely. I tried again. Please, just let me explain. He didn't answer. Didn't even look at me. Not here. 2 words. And they froze my blood. Not here. That meant he had a place in mind. Somewhere planned. We stepped outside. The night air slapped my skin like ice. He opened the passenger side door and gestured for me to get in. I hesitated. I could run. I could scream. But then I looked at him. This wasn't a man who would chase me down in a rage. He wouldn't make a scene. He'd wait. And when I least expected it, whatever punishment he had planned would be worse. So I got in. The door shut behind me like a verdict. Moments later, he slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. The silence was unbearable. City lights flickered past the windows as we drove. I sat frozen, fists clenched in my lap, trying not to fall apart. Then I saw where we were going. No. 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 He pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant where we had celebrated our first anniversary. The place where, once upon a time, he had held my hand across a candlelit table and promised forever. He parked, turned off the car, and at last he looked at me. Get out. I hesitated. Why? His voice hardened. I said, get out. A place where people toasted anniversaries, celebrated engagements, whispered sweet promises across candlelit tables. And yet, this was where my husband had chosen to dismantle my life. A waiter approached, wearing the kind of practiced smile that came from years of service. Good evening, sir. Table for 2. My husband responded with a firm hand pressed against the small of my back. We have a reservation. I booked it last week. I froze. A week ago. That meant he knew. He had known before tonight. My stomach twisted as realization hit. The waiter led us through the crowd, past couples lost in affection and laughter, straight to a table positioned dead center in the room, not secluded. Not tucked discreetly near a wall. No. This was deliberate. A spotlight. He pulled out a chair for me. Sit. I obeyed, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. He took the seat across from me, perfectly composed. Then, wordlessly, he placed his phone on the table. Screen facing up. I barely had the courage to look. But when I did, I saw it. Recordings. Streaming live. Shared to a group chat. A group number that I didn't recognize his voice. It was low, almost soft. Take a good look. I turned, and there they were, scattered among the crowd, sitting at separate tables. His friends. his colleagues, and worst of all mine. My family, my friends, my chat, seated like spectators at a play. Some pretended to eat, but their expressions gave them away. They knew. They had seen. And now everyone was watching. I tried to breathe, but the air felt too thick to swallow. He leaned forward, hands calmly folded. Now remind me, how long has it been? The world around us dimmed. The clatter of dishes, the murmur of conversation, the music, all of it vanished. There was only the sound of my heartbeat, and his voice, still streaming, still broadcasting this humiliation in real time. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. He tilted his head slightly. No answer. I swallowed. Every eye in the restaurant burned into my skin. The weight of it was unbearable. Please, I whispered. He didn't blink. How long have you been sleeping with him? Everything stopped. A few diners, strangers, paused mid-bite, their forks hovering in the air. Their eyes locked on me. The shame was suffocating. I could lie, but the look in his eyes told me that would seal my fate. 6 months, I choked out. His lips twitched. Not a smile of amusement. A grim confirmation. He already knew. Course he did. From the inside pocket of his jacket, he pulled out a small black USB drive. He set it beside his phone and tapped it with one finger. I had cameras installed last month. His tone was disturbingly casual, like we were discussing renovations. Not just in the bedroom. The living room. Kitchen. Even the garage. A chill rolled through me. I've got hours of footage. Dozens of clips. You letting him in after I left for work. He leaned in again. Did you ever think twice? Even once? Or did you just assume I was too stupid to notice? Tears burned behind my eyes. I didn't mean. Don't. His voice cut sharp. Don't insult me with I didn't mean to. I went silent. There was nothing I could say. Nothing he hadn't already disproven. He leaned back, tapped the USB again. That's not even the highlight. From inside his jacket, he pulled out a folded piece of paper. Legal-sized. Thick. He slid it across the table. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. Divorce papers. And worse. Attached were terms, ruthless ones. The house gone. Joint accounts frozen. Car his. My job, the position I'd gotten through his connections, already severed. He had made sure that thread was cut. He let me absorb it. Let the weight of it crush me. I could drag you through court, he said calmly. I could take the footage to a judge. Make sure you walk away with nothing. He glanced at his phone. I could send this stream to your boss. Your parents. Post it online. Make it go viral. He drummed his fingers against the table. But I'm offering you one chance. I looked up, vision blurred, throat raw. One chance to disappear. Sign the papers. Pack up. Be gone by tomorrow. He picked up the USB and rolled it between his fingers. But if you fight me... His voice softened. A whisper that felt like a blade. If you even think about making this difficult... He smiled. I will ruin you completely. I sat frozen. Humiliated. Exposed. My entire world reduced to whispers, stares, and ink on paper. My hand reached for the pen he had placed beside the documents. And there, under the gaze of strangers and loved ones alike, my betrayal laid bare for all to see. I signed. The second the pen left the page, he stood, straightened his jacket, scooped up the USB and phone. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving me sitting in the wreckage. Alone. Empty. And it wasn't over. She thought that moment was her lowest point. But I knew better. That was just step one. Her shame was now public. Her support system gone. Friends distanced themselves. Her family, disgusted, cut ties. Her employer fired her without hesitation. A moral clause buried in her contract sealed the deal. The videos had already started circulating. Behind the scenes, I had done even more damage. Moved assets. Closed accounts. Locked down every legal advantage. When she tried to contest it, she found out too late. She had already signed everything away. In that restaurant. In front of the world. She called me once. Her voice cracked with desperation. "Please, can we talk?" I smiled. "We already did." Then I hung up. That was the last time I heard her voice. As for me, I walked away with my future intact and left her buried beneath the consequences of her own choices. Was it revenge? Maybe. Did it go too far? You tell me. Drop your thoughts below. And if you love stories that hit hard and leave an impact, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned. We've got more tales of betrayal and justice coming your way. Your support means everything. Thanks for being part of the ride.